man.
The show ending caused everything.
Yeah, that's it. It was really their fault. So we can blame Netflix for that.
Yeah.
But I'm excited, you guys. It's been a year. How do you guys feel? It's been a year since the finale. How you guys feeling this year? How you doing?
I feel like I lost my concept of time in the last 12 months, and so thinking about the fact that this finale came out a year ago is just mind-boggling.
I can relate to
It
that for
feels
sure.
like it feels like so much has happened to where for me it kind of feels like this was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Wait. You mean it hasn't been 10 years?
Sure feels like that.
Oh,
It's not the
man.
future. It's the present.
Oh my god.
I feel like I had reasons for to be sad when BoJack was over, and now I discovered like so many other reasons, like the basement underneath my rock bottom. I discovered right after BoJack ended.
Mm.
Oh no.
Fun,
Yeah.
lots of fun.
Well, what a pleasant start to the stream. This is gonna be good. Oh my god, guys, there's 500 people watching. This is crazy.
Wow.
What the
Hi,
heck?
500 people.
Hey everyone.
Thank you for being here.
Hello.
Oh man, well welcome. This is going to be exciting, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's just jump into it. Let's start by talking about our favorite episodes of BoJack Horseman. I'm going to just like run down the list as it's presented here on the Discord overlay for us. So, Leica, aka BoJack Hidden Jokes, do you have a favorite episode of BoJack? If so, what is it?
No, really. They're all pretty much just the same. I'm kidding. It's really hard for me to choose because I feel like it changes a lot. But I don't know, whenever you ask that question, I keep coming back to the old Sugarman Place because it's so perfect. I mean, we have lots of perfect episodes for many different reasons, but I really love that it's focused on BoJack and all the layers underneath layers of like discovering everything about his past and all that. So I think that's my favorite one. I finally settle on something. So yeah,
It's a good choice.
that's the one.
Keeks, do you
Yeah.
have a favorite episode?
Yeah, I do love the old Sugarman Place and Times Arrow, but I feel like other people are going to talk about those. So I wanted to shout out the Amelia Earhart story, the episode that gives us insight into Princess Carolyn's young life and her like codependent, narcissistic, selfish drunk of a mother, because it just makes her so much more inspiring because we like know that she originated from that horrible abusive place and being told she'd never make it anywhere, and then her mom even like tried to get her to stay home from college for a year, and yet she still made it to LA and like became a successful manager. And then obviously I love Free Churro, but I feel like we'll probably dig into that episode later too. So my other favorite is Good Damage, with the one that's just all about Diane trying to justify her trauma, and like make a book out of it and make everything bad that happened to her worth something. Because I related to that one on a personal level, it really helped me like realize so the way that I framed things that have happened to me and how I need to think about them differently. So those are my two favorites.
Good choices. I'm glad you shouted out Amelia Earhart's story because I think that's an underrated episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, it was sort of a thing like this stream beforehand. I couldn't really say, oh yeah, this is my favorite BoJack episode for a while. It wasn't until we like decided like yesterday to like just go through a few of the episodes, particularly a lot of them in the last season, and like and I ended up rewatching. It was from us watching that I figured out my favorite character was Princess Caroline.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, what was the one where she was telling, where by the end you figure out she's regarding or the episode's about this young girl telling the story of her grandma, or her great grandma, Princess
Ruthie.
Caroline.
Yeah, Ruthie.
Yeah, and
Ruthie, yeah.
I rewatched that one, and I was like, I think this might be my favorite. And it was at this point when Princess Caroline was like just figured out that her baby it was a miscarriage, and she got to her car and started breaking down, and I started welling up, and that's when I was like, yep, this is my favorite. This is genuinely my favorite. I've seen like no other episode hit me like this one, and then I also had to revisit The New Client because I feel like that one acts as a genuine sequel in a sense to Ruthie. But I think that's something. But I think those ultimately are some of my favorites because it's like they portray exactly the harshness of Princess Caroline's life and what she's gone through and everything, but in a sense kind of celebrate somewhat of her triumph because you get to New Client. It's like, yeah, she's finally at the beginning stages of finding her happiness at this point.
Totally.
And, I mean, that's all, and that's kind of the whole thing about the last season is that everyone's finding their happiness finally beyond Bojack and having to deal with him.
Yeah.
Those are great choices. Yeah, I think a lot of people love Ruthie. That's when I get a lot of comments about just people being like, talk about Ruthie, please. Ruthie's my favorite.
After watching the show again, something I noticed from the Amelia Earhart story is like that episode has the scene where her mother like lies to her about the origin of the family necklace.
Right.
So like having the context of that episode while watching Amelia Earhart's story like even made it even deeper.
Yeah, they did a good job over those last couple seasons really fleshing out Princess Carolyn's backstory and everything. And I'm really grateful they did because she's always one of my favorite characters, and to see, you know, where she was before she got to the character we knew, I think was really satisfying. They did a really good job with that. All right, Shady Durags, do you have a favorite episode?
Absolutely, 100%. Man, I want to say so many episodes because there's just so many good ones. But the view from halfway down just stole the show for me. It hits me. You know, there's that saying that BoJack makes you realize certain things that you haven't realized before. The view from halfway down was probably the first. No, Ruthie was the first, but the view from halfway down was the second one that really hit that for me. Just BoJack coming to grips with the fact that he's dying and he's reached the point that he can't do anything about it. You know, throughout the series, we've seen him approach it, but not get to that point. And not only is the what it's trying to tell so impactful to me personally, but how it did it. It's so artistically well done, just from the symbolism that goes on through it. And, you know, Johnny, you did a whole video spiel on this. All the symbolism that goes into it, and that poem, that beautiful poem. Just Will Arnett, that performance on that poem was just so amazing. Like I had to watch that episode several times. When I was watching the season finale for the first time, I stopped on that episode and watched it like I want to say like 6 times before I was allowed to keep going. That is definitely hands down my number one.
Great choice. Yeah, I think one of the coolest things about that episode is how it's such a culmination of everything from the show. Like not only is it so special and unique and just like an incredible piece of art, but it wouldn't have been nearly as impactful if it didn't have all of these tiny little pieces and references just to, like, you know, just hearkening back to the whole journey we had just gone on over the course of these 6 seasons. That thing is a gosh darn masterpiece. It's so good.
Yeah.
All right. Toontastic Tyrone.
Okay, so I was kind of similar to Matt. I didn't have an answer really until I had to start thinking about it. And it's not the show's fault. It's more of like I guess how my brain consumes like bingeable media. So like when I think of the show, I think of like the experience of the show. You know what I mean? Bojack Horseman is one of those shows where, like, I always say there's only a few shows that I think are like, there's like good shows, there's really good shows, and then there's shows that are so good that I get frustrated. And Bojack is one of those. So I think it's crazy because Keeks definitely said it, but I think I'm gonna go with Tom's Arrow as my favorite one because I specifically remember like where my brain was like while watching it, like just putting everything together and like watching everything play out. Like it was like I couldn't even explain like what that was doing to my mind, and not like, and you get to a lot of points in this show in particular where you just kind of go like, yo, what are they doing? Like I've never seen anything like this before. Like, and I think that might have been the peak of that for me. So I'll go with that. I also really like the Showstopper.
Yeah. Oh man. I think my top 3 episodes were all listed. I think my favorite ones are the Old Sugarman Place, The View from Halfway Down, Times Arrow. But it's so hard. It's so hard to choose a favorite in this show because there are so many excellent episodes, and also like I said before, The View from Halfway Down. One of the reasons it's so great is because of the build up to it from the show. Like it's great because we, it earned that episode over the course of 6 seasons. But yeah, man, there's almost too many to choose from in this show. I think everyone had great choices.
I want to piggyback on Time's Arrow because that episode, even though it's not my favorite, it still hits me in a very special place because one major driving theme on my channel is empathy, and I think empathy is just so important. And in that episode, we take this character who we absolutely hated for 4 seasons, and it showed us everything that made her who she was. And not necessarily trying to get us to forgive her, but to understand what made her the way she had become. And at the end, when Bojack doesn't take his revenge, if we hadn't gone through Time's Arrow, the audience probably would have been frustrated at Bojack because it would have seemed less cathartic. But now that we had went through all that and we see him just not take his revenge, just let her have peace, we understand exactly why he's doing that. And I just really wanted to express that.
Oh,
Yeah, I agree. That episode is, I think it's also important, kind of like what you said of like just illustrating that these people that are broken and seem just so like full of hate or evil or however you want to characterize them, like they still have their own life that they lived in, their own like set of traumas that push them to where they are. And I don't know, it gives a lot of perspective on like the like toxic cycle of like abuse and everything else that his and alcoholism and everything else that his family struggles with. Just like, and it just fleshes out like his character and his parents so much. So yeah, I love that episode too, and for a lot of reasons, but that's like the main one.
Yeah, that's like, this show does such a great job helping us empathize with characters without, justifying the things that they've done that we hate. And and Beatrice is like the absolute epitome of that, where just for 3 seasons there was nothing to like about her. And all of a sudden they give us the Old Sugarman Place and they give us Times Arrow, and it contextualizes everything about her. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, well, she's still awful, but I get it. Like, I get it now.
They humanize everyone in the show regardless of how nasty they are, and that's one of the things that I think makes it like so like real more than a lot of other shows.
Yeah, it plays more onto the grayscale because at the end of the day, life isn't always just, it's black and white, good versus evil. Sometimes it's like, sometimes you have a good person who end up being turned bad because they had that shitty of a situation going on. Sometimes you have a bad person who genuinely wants to try to do the right thing and do good, but sometimes but their own old tendencies or their past kind of keeps catching up with them. And I think that's just one of the brilliant things about Bojack, is that because at the end of the day, Bojack himself, he's not a very good guy. He's a pretty terrible guy.
Right.
But we see but we could see the genuine humanity of someone who wants to do the right thing, who wants to be the good guy, but he just can't escape his own past, escape his own tendencies.
Yeah, and escape
Like-
his own trauma. Yeah, it's such a well constructed show.
Yeah.
But you
Did
know,
we mention we like this show? I think we mentioned we like this show.
That's why we're here.
Wait, what show? I don't even remember what we're doing. This is the Hey Arnold thing, right? That's what I came in for.
I heard it was a show about a horse. I was thinking My Little Pony, but
Oh man.
wait, wrong streaming. I gotta go.
Before we keep going, we've gotten some super chats, and I want to shout these people out. Nathan Jones says, the poem and the view from halfway down genuinely saved my life. One of the best episodes of TV, not just Bojack. Nathan, I agree, and I'm so glad that the show had that kind of impact on you, and glad it saved your life. We're glad you're here. We've got NW Country Girl 17 says, was watching Free Churro, then realized it was live stream time. Welcome. Thank you for the super chat. We're glad you're here. John Martin says, view from halfway down and Old Sugarman Place aren't just some of the best Bojack episodes, but some of the best TV episodes in recent history. I super agree with you, John Martin. I think everyone in the stream agrees.
Yeah.
Marissa White says, my favorites are Time's Error and The View from Halfway Down. Also, I love your videos. What are your favorite characters? Mine's Princess Carolyn. Do we want to do favorite characters?
Yeah,
Yes.
let's do it.
I already did it. I already did that.
Mine's also Princess Carolyn, for
You
the
know what?
record.
Mine is also Princess Carolyn.
We love her.
What?
Yeah.
I'll say that mine is Diane. I love her.
mine was Princess
Most
Carolyn
people
for the
call
longest
her
time. But after season, I think it was 6, it was officially Sarah Lynn.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Sarah Lynn.
Oh, wow.
Tariq,
I'm
you got
locking
one?
Diane. Yeah, Diane.
Nice.
Yay.
I see a
Wow.
lot of myself in like just her trying to, like, even all that stuff when she was like trying to write the book and like trying to put together fiction, like
Yeah.
stuff in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's I love Diana, and she was my favorite character for a long time. And but like it's like as I like grew up and like started finding better coping mechanisms for my depression, it became harder and harder. You know, I know she like, you know, gets better by the end of the series, or you know, she starts moving on with her life, but like it just became harder and harder to like love her and justify some of her decisions. As like a person who saw myself and a lot of my own issues within her. So I don't know. Yeah, I love Princess Carolyn and Diane, but my views on them are like very different as to why they're my favorite characters.
Because that's what this show does, right? Like the characters and the situations are so real that like you see a lot of reflection in that. So it could probably remind you of a time where it's like, fuck, why did I do that? I did something that was like that. Like oh, what are you doing? Because I know how that's gonna, you know what I mean? Because they're real and they're written really real, and you see the effects of all their actions and stuff like that. So that's kind of just, yeah, I could definitely see like just see it. Like as I talked to people before that like started watching the show, and they tell me like, I can't stand Diane. I'm like, why? It's because it's just me. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
You're
All right.
Yeah, I think it is easy to see yourself in her if you're a person who's struggled with mental illness.
Oh yeah.
Especially.
Am I the only one married in this live stream? 'Cause-
I'm married too.
Oh, okay, cool. Because that was one of my like the first reasons why I got so into Diane, like just to see the whole dynamic with her marriage with Mr. Peanut Butter and how hard it is for you to like keep your own identity and share your life with someone.
Mhm.
And when we got to that metaphor about the poster and
Squinting?
how you had to squeeze,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh man, that's exactly how I feel. Oh no. And yeah, that was very helpful in therapy, actually. But there's a personal connection to her.
That episode in particular has like, because the show has like really, really insane, profound quotables, but that one has so many because there's the squinting stuff, and there's the other one where like, when he buys her the library, and
Yeah.
he's like, she's like, why did you? So because if I didn't, it would feel like you're a guest. And
Yeah.
what's the exact line? It's like, it just not unlike the aforementioned Disney movie. That's not what I want you to be. Some shit like that.
They're doing like this super profound thing, and at the same time, they're doing like a Beauty and the Beast joke. Like, only Bojack can do
The
that.
show
I
is
love
good
it.
at that, just inserting moments of very silly humor into something that should be so serious.
Yeah.
The quote is, because otherwise you feel like a guest. And unlike the characters from the aforementioned Disney movie, I don't want you to be that.
There it
Oh,
is.
so good. Oh man, this show is.
And then you add that to the little couch with the drawing, like little faces for the characters, and it's just perfect. Like the visual and the writing is combined. It's just everything.
Does anybody have that book? They have the BoJack art book. I have it at home.
I've got it.
I need that.
It's called.
It's really good.
It's such a good name too. It's The Art Before the Horse. It's a perfect name for the for the art book.
Oh shit!
That's what they did there.
Anyone who's a fan of this show should get that art book. It's incredible. Not only does it give you like a bunch of really incredible art from the creation of the show, but insight into how they make the show. It's really good. All right. I've got one more. We got one more super chat from our friend Haryana Hook. Says, just because Johnny is pretty, don't.
Johnny's too beautiful.
I mean, the boot fits.
It's I appreciate the ego boost, to be honest. I'm not going to ask you to stop.
It's going to be so much more as well.
You know what? I'm going to look through chat real quick and see if anyone else talking about favorite episodes that we didn't list. One we didn't talk about is Stupid Piece of Shit, which is a beloved episode.
Yeah.
Also one that I think a lot of people relate to. I definitely hear a lot of people relate to that one.
Yeah, I hear that one a lot too. It's kind of awkward for me because I don't, my channel is family friendly, so I can't say the title of it a lot. But a lot of people say that episode caused them to heavily relate to Bojack just because of that voice that he talks about, that Hollyhock says she has. They are completely 100% familiar with it, and they understand the struggle of trying to escape it. And just, it speaks about self-esteem and how that applies to you and how that can come from different sources as well as yourself.
Totally.
Yeah. And I had a little note about that episode more when we're talking about the legacy and all that. But one thing that I noticed later, like rewatching that episode, is that that voice inside your head, sometimes it can be so critical, so judgmental, it's so cruel sometimes. But at the same time, when you go back to the episode and you see the little Bojack that they created, like that blue version, he has like the big belly outside and he's all cranky and weird, and that kind of makes me make fun of my little voice inside my head. Like I keep imagining her in that style, like, and I was like, yeah, you're not that cruel, you're just like a bunch of scribbles and all that. So that helps me a little bit of not take that too seriously. Like, I imagine the little belly and I was like, yeah, you don't know what you're saying, like don't keep judging me all the time. So there's a little bit of the animation style that they chose for that really helps me get along with my inner voice, because otherwise it will be just like impossible to leave.
Yeah, they do a good job with different animation styles in this show to illustrate different things. And I think in particular, Stupid Piece of Shit and then also Good Damage, they both did such a good job.
Yeah.
And it's just like how chaotic, how sort of chaotic the style is, kind of matches that personal struggle that the characters are going through.
One thing I want to point out about the Stupid episode is something that not a lot of people say they like, but this is something I noticed in particular when I was watching the episode. At the very end, when when Hollyhock says, "Does the voice ever go away?" and Bojack says, "Yeah." To me, it's a clear lie. that he's saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because he still has the voice, but he's saying it because he wants Hollyhock to feel better. He wants to give Hollyhock hope. I noticed two things about that I rarely hear mentioned. This is Bojack. At the time, he thought Hollyhock was his daughter. Breaking that toxic cycle of parents condemning their kids. He's trying to build her up rather than put her down like his parents did him. And the other thing I noticed, if I'm remembering it right, this is the first time Bojack lies to put someone else first in the relationship. Usually, even if he cares about someone, he's putting himself first in their relationship.
Yeah.
Even when you go back to when he tried to get with Charlotte, he was only thinking about himself and what he wanted. He wasn't thinking about how it affects everybody in the situation. If memory serves, that was the first time. It's one I constantly remember. So I'm like, this is where I saw Bojack really changing.
That's a really great observation. And I even think I just recently covered and watched through That's Too Much Man, which was one that I held off on covering for so long because it's such a heavy episode. But in that episode as well, the whole time, like, even though, he's spending all this time with Sarah Lynn and we know he loves Sarah Lynn, the entire episode, Sarah Lynn is trying to talk to Bojack about real things. And he is completely blowing them off. She talks about how crazy it is that she was cast in a show at 3 years old and that she never really had her own agency. And he's kind of like, this is depressing. Let's talk about something else. And yeah, it's that's a really good point, and that he cared so much about Hollyhock in that moment that he was willing to put her above himself.
Yeah.
All right, let's. You know what? We got a few more super chats, and they have some good questions. I think we should go through those questions, and then we can talk about the series of finale. All right, here's a question: favorite F-bomb moment. Mine is Todd. This is from NW Country Girl 17. Mine's Todd, since he finally stopped being Bojack's doormat. Y'all have a favorite F-bomb since there's one a season?
Yeah. Mine is season 6, in a quick one while he's away, when Gina's co-star says, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" after she freaks out when he dips her when they're filming. Because that's what Gina said to Bojack after he strangled her, and it kind of just very subtly is another indication of the way that Bojack's actions have caused a domino effect of hurting other people. So I think it just holds a lot of significance in that way for me.
Mine is similar, but it's the one that Charlotte says to him on season 2. Well, can we curse here or no? You know which one it is.
Yeah, go for it. Just do it.
Kill you.
We're talking about F-bombs. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's really powerful. I mean, that episode was my favorite for many times. Now I cannot go back and rewatch it anymore because it hurts too much. But that combination, I think it's the heat in the episode goes up, and then you have that bomb, and then he goes away, and all that song, and then it's just perfect. It's very empowering to hear a woman like a small deer saying that to a 1,000 pounds horse. It's kind of fun.
Man, do you have a favorite?
It's hard to choose.
Yeah,
really. But part of me, the one I think about the most probably is the Todd one the most. It's fuck.
He's just so exasperated. It's it's cathartic.
Exactly. I think that's what makes it probably to me the most powerful, because it's basically what we all would say to ourselves or to somebody that's just kind of been burning us too much. We just say, fuck, man, what is this? What are we doing anymore? Why are we still here at this point? And because that's what happened with Todd. He said, fuck, man, what am I doing? He's not saying that he's not saying that to just Bojack. He's also saying that to himself. It's what am I doing? I'm really here with this jackass who keeps fucking me over, doesn't respect me, doesn't care for me. I need to move.
What is there?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
It's like
shout out to Aaron Paul for that delivery, because that gives me
Yes.
chills
Yeah.
every time. It comes from a place within that it's so hurtful. It's amazing.
I think in general, Aaron Paul's performance is underrated. It's so good,
Insane.
and it's so different
Yeah.
than his other performances, and he's still able
Yeah.
to give these great dramatic moments, even when his character is just so goofy.
Mhm.
Yeah, man, he's a good actor.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, that's what's so amazing about Todd himself, is that he can be sincere, even though he's like a total goofball. He still gets off them good moments.
Shady, do you have a favorite F-bomb?
I'm split between season 1 and season 4. Be- I think for now I'm at least going to say season 1, just because the first time,
That
it's
one's
basically
really
what it is. It's the first time, and when you figure out what it means, whether you deduce it yourself or you see notes from the show writers or you heard some YouTuber talking about it, like you understand that Bojack has caused someone to cut them from his life. And with Herb, all the stuff Herb did for Bojack, just Herb was responsible for Bojack's life, basically the successes in his life. He had a huge part to play in it. And after all that, Bojack not only threw him under the bus, which Herb might have forgiven him for, but he didn't confront it. For years, he didn't confront Herb about what happened. And he finally has to, because otherwise Herb's going to die and he'll have no closure. And Herb treats him nicely, treats him like a friend, even though all the stuff he did. But when Bojack comes asking for forgiveness, he looks at him and says, no, you don't get that. And he has to explain to him just how wrong he is to even ask for that. And then ends it with now get out of my office.
Yeah.
I can't say it. I'm sorry. But
He's like, now
Yeah.
get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
also like
Out of my house.
huge
My
huge
house.
props to Stanley Tucci for that delivery too. It is so like biting, just the way he drops that F-bomb. It stings in that delivery.
I
Man,
think it's because he's not yelling either, too. It's like
yeah,
Yeah,
know
it's
what
like
I
a
mean?
small it's subtle anger towards it. Like it's
Mhm.
it's more poisonous that it's so contained. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
he wanted to hurt him with those words.
yeah.
He felt hurt, and he felt hurt that he asked for forgiveness. And he's like, okay, I'm going to set the line here. I'm going to hurt you with what I'm about to say right now.
Ooh.
I do got a question for you, Shady, because you brought up season 4, and I was gonna ask why do you rank that one so high? Because that's actually my least favorite one.
Season
interesting.
4,
I love that one.
where he says "fuck you,
Oh,
mom."
the F-bomb.
Yeah.
because I didn't catch it. I was like, did they go a whole season without anyone saying it? And it's because it came from Bojack. I didn't realize somebody had said it. And B, it's just because one of the big things I see about the show is Bojack's relationship with his mother. His father had a hand in playing it too, but like when season 2 came around and I saw him trying to be a better person, even though it was affecting his acting, I was like, I believe this is a good step. You just got to figure out how to do it. And then his mom calls him and brings him completely down, even though, again, it helps his acting. It just destroyed his character. I was like, you have got to get away. You've got to get that hold of your mother off of you. And when he said that, I was like, I know what he wants to do. And he's so sad that, because the situation was, he couldn't say it to her. She wouldn't understand it because she was going through that dementia thing. And he said it with such forcefulness because he really wanted to tell her off, but he couldn't. So that situation kind of stuck with me, just because I had been thinking about his relationship with his mother since the beginning of season 2, and it seemed to be coming to a head there. Little did I know Churro was coming around.
Yeah, that is the other thing. I feel like as a moment in the show, the season 4 F-bomb is a little underwhelming, but when it comes back to the end of Time's Arrow, when he has that chance to do what
Right.
he wanted to do and tell her
Yeah.
F off, he doesn't do it.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
kind of love it because it's like I think it's like the only instance in the show of the F-bomb where it's not used to insult somebody. Like he's just talking to Hollyhock about his feelings.
Yeah, what he
basically.
wants to do.
And it's
yeah.
like a subtle use of it. Like it just seems like part of conversation instead of, like something inflicting pain, basically, like it is in every other instance.
And similar to that experience with him lying to Hollyhock, that was the first time that I saw, like maybe the only time that I saw Bojack being nice to someone, because he had all the reasons to just ruin her at that moment, and then he decided to. It was also a lie about the ice cream and all that, but
Right.
he decided to play along for her sake, and I was like, oh man, that's the problem with parents. It doesn't matter how much you hate them or how much they ruin you, you will always have that thing that makes you go back and want to try again. And it was so powerful. It's a great moment.
Totally. All right, we got one more question here that I think is a good one before we jump to the finale. Shanice Dyer, thank you for the super chat, asks, what is your favorite and least favorite season? I'll start and say my favorite season is season 4. I think it's got my favorite episodes. I love the old Sugarman Place and Times Arrow so much, and I really love the journey with Beatrice and with Hollyhock over that season. And my least favorite is probably season 1, just because I think it took about half the season for them to figure out what they truly wanted to be.
Okay. Season 4 used to be my favorite, but now thinking about that, I think season 6 is my favorite because I wish all the seasons had 16 episodes for us to enjoy more Bojack and more big acts like we had. They had so much fun during season 6, doing all sorts of stuff. I mean, we didn't mention in the favorite episode the one where they get the oh my god, what's the name? The crossover episode.
Face of
Bojack
Depression. The Face of Depression.
Yes, that is on my top 5 for sure, because that's such a happy episode. It's so out of the comfort zone for Bojack. So you can see that they were having fun doing all the things since it was the last one. So yeah, definitely season 6 is the favorite, and I think I'm gonna say season 2 as my least favorite at the moment, just because it's all about Secretariat, and I think there's more to explore here. I mean, it's a great season, don't get me wrong, but it's not my favorite. Like, it's the least favorite, unfortunately. Sorry.
Yeah, with Bojack, it's like even your least favorite season is still good. So it's
Yeah.
And on those grounds, I reject the notion of having a favorite or least favorite season because it's my favorite show ever. And every single season presents new information about the characters, new problems, new depth to everything. And I don't think there's any season where they were lacking or they missed the mark. I truly think that this show is like one of the best works of all time, and so I'm not going to pick a favorite season or a least favorite.
It's definitely
Kiki.
it's that horse meme where the horse is perfect in every piece of it. Like, it's great. All the way.
I think season 2 though has one of my favorite jokes in all of Bojack, and it's like the one where like Bojack had to pick a poster for the Secretariat, and it's the one with the mirror pretty much. And like he picked it for the billboard, and it's like, and Diane was pointing out, that's kind of you can barely read the words, and also that billboard's kind of pointing towards where the sun would be like setting. So every time people driving on the highway look up, they're gonna get blinded. and they never showed the actual consequences, but I think it's funnier that they don't, because it's just that hilarious. It's so many people driving are gonna crash because of that terrible sign.
They somewhat do show the consequences, because in the last episode, the blimp reflects the sun into the water and cooks the pasta.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. God, that's so good. All right, I'm gonna try to get to some more of these. Unless anyone else has least favorite season they want to go down.
I do. And I'm probably not gonna make any friends with this one. My favorite season is season 4. Bit of a bias. When I started watching BoJack Horseman, season 4 had just released, so it was the freshest season in my mind. I loved all 4 seasons that I saw, but season 4 was the freshest. But also because I really enjoy when characters learn their lessons, and season 4 had BoJack learning his lesson with Hollyhock. He had made a serious mistake with Sarah Lynn, and it really showed in season 4 that he had learned from that mistake. If they had cut it off at season 4, that would have been BoJack's happy ending, quote unquote. But there's always what happens after happily ever after. Speaking of which, this is where I lose a lot of friends. I don't like season 5 a lot. I think it has some objective problems with it.
It is. I can definitely see if, especially with one of the things you connected with so much about season 4 was how BoJack learned his lesson, and season 5, is kind of about regression into your toxicity and addictions. So I can definitely understand how that might not rub you the right way.
Yeah, I was also somewhat of the how. Like, I expected BoJack to have more problems, and regression possibly being one of those problems. I felt like there was a sudden jump in certain tones. One of the things I've mentioned is that drugs have always been, throughout the series, a thing. Season 5, they suddenly become really serious. Like, they've always been a thing, but season 5, not drugs, sorry, addiction. Let me be specific. Addiction suddenly becomes very serious. And I'm like, I think addiction could be serious, but they didn't build up to it properly. It jumps into that after the really good ending, like not good as in the really sweet ending. There you go. The really sweet ending of season 4. It jumps from that sweet ending to BoJack is dealing with addiction and it's really affecting him and he might regress at any point. And I'm like, I think a lot of the problems I have with season 5 would have been fixed if we moved up Free Churro, because the death of Beatrice, I think, would have a major effect on BoJack, no matter how happy he is. But because it was in the middle of the season, the sudden jump to seriousness from season 4's sweet ending to season 5's beginning, it really hit me the wrong way. And I have a lot of other problems with season 5 too, but I will leave it there. I don't want the death glares to keep coming at me.
I want to play a real quick devil's advocate for what you said about addiction. And I don't know, I might be off base here. But I feel like thinking about that, it could have been an intentional choice in the way that for some people, addiction can just kind of creep up. Like, it doesn't feel like things are a problem until they're a problem. And just playing devil's advocate and maybe trying to suss out if they had any intentionality behind that decision or not. But I think you make good points about season 5 for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna pigtail on the addiction topic and say one more thing, because I feel like there's an underlining tone of like the topic of addiction. It's all over BoJack in many different ways, because it's I completely agree with season 5. It's like, oh my god, suddenly the pills and all that, and we're seeing that, but wait a second, you've been drinking ever since episode 1 and we never saw something like that. But at the same time, if you think about BoJack being addicted to his fame and many of the, I keep thinking about Xerox of a Xerox, how much his addiction to fame and being the hot topic caused his major destruction during that second interview, and that's been always there. Like it's his attachment to horsing around, it's his attachment to Princess Caroline and all that. So it's there, but it's represented in many different ways, which I think it's kind of brilliant. So it's almost like in season 5 they decided to explore a more literal addiction maybe, and then that happened. But I agree, I have major problems with season 5 as well. I think it's too dark. I remember watching that and feeling so scared that Bojack was going to die at any minute. So it's not something that I rewatch that often.
Interesting. Cool. All right. Well, why don't we move on to talking about the finale? Why we're here? We've had so much to talk about this whole time, but let's talk about the series finale. I know I get a lot of comments from people, and I think this is something some people really believe, is that a lot of people would have preferred if the show had ended with the view from halfway down and Bojack had just died at the end of that, and we never got, nice while it lasted, which is something I personally very much disagree with. But I want to hear your guys' takes. How do you guys like the series finale? Let's run down. Let's go. Leica, why don't you start?
Oh my God, why me?
It's just because you're at the top of the list. We can go somewhere else if you want.
Yeah,
we can call you Jokes instead.
I had so many different. I don't know if you guys have the same experience, but the feelings that I have watching a fresh episode of BoJack, like for the first time, are never the same one. I'm always super impressed, and I was terrified that they were going to kill BoJack. Like I mentioned, ever since season 5, I was kind of expecting that. So I was when I watched it, like when the view, I remember very clearly that when the view from halfway down started, I was like, God damn it, that's it. They finally did it. Yeah, now I have to deal with that. So to watch that finale later, it was such a relief for me. Like I gotta confess that I skipped the credits. I'm so sorry, but I did that because I was so desperate to finish the thing. So I didn't catch that blip at the end. So I had to discover that Bojack was alive through the jokes into the episode, that hot montage that they did, which I think was fantastic. Actually, it was a great way to undo what they had built during the view from halfway down, and so it was great. Like I could breathe again, and it was so good to just relax and enjoy the consequences and that closure that doesn't feel like closure. I was like, yeah, that's the way that Bojack would do an ending. It felt so genuine, and probably because Raphael was the one who wrote that episode. So he got that he said many times that he doesn't believe in closure, so you just have to keep living, and the message was very clear there. So I really love that ending, and I think it's not a happy end. It's far from that, but at the same time it kind of gives you the message that you need to wake up every day and keep doing and keep trying to do something better. Or even if you screw up, eventually you're gonna just keep going. I guess that conversation with Todd and them at the beach, when he says that he's afraid that he's gonna screw up again, and then Todd says, hey, then you try again. And it's just so pure. And so yeah, I'm a big fan of the finale. But I'm curious to hear other thoughts.
Yeah, let's keep going down. Kiki.
I'm a good fan of the finale, or I'm a big fan of the finale too.
Good fan.
I'm a good fan. I honestly don't think there's another way they could have ended it. I don't know if I was scared that they were gonna kill Bojack, because I knew that if they did it, it would have been the right thing to do. But I am really glad they didn't, because I think the whole point of the show is, like accountability and growing to become a better person when you really boil it down. So killing him before he had a chance to, keep moving with his life, I think would have betrayed the message of the show. I did think it was really nice that, like, the only characters, they really focused in on, like, the main cast that we've, come to know and love, and they gave us one less conversation. I think some of the characters, he'll have more conversations with them, but they gave us one last look at conversations between them before the show ended. And I think the choice to end it on Bojack and Diane, and to have them, and to have Princess Carolyn get married, I'm so glad that she got married, because there's no doubt in my mind that Bojack would have tried to go after her again, and Diane too, if things had been different. But to have the series just end on that last conversation between Diane and Bojack, and for them to argue in that conversation, you know, like just bicker at each other before they really like say their last words, I think was perfect, and it didn't make me feel good. Like from the moment that she says, "I'm glad I knew you," to him, like my whole body just feels it's like pain and like genuinely, and it just upsets me. And then watching them you have the animation looping on the live stream right now, watching them just like look around, and like that feeling of wondering whether or not they're going to say anything else just made my whole body feel like it was like burning, it was on fire. And I think they did a really good job of like wrapping up the important loose ends while also like leaving some things up to interpretation, which I think is a much better way to end the show than just killing off Bojack and having his whole life just be a traumatic domino effect that just, you know, ended up in death. I think that would have been a really dark way to do it, and having it instead be, yes, he's going to lose some people that are important to him because of his actions, but after he's out of jail, he gets to, you know, keep moving. I think that's a way better way to end it.
Right on. I agree. Man, you want to go?
Okay, so I'm gonna say my whole personal piece, and I'm probably gonna get a bit preachy or so. But
Here it comes. It always
like,
happens, guys.
like or more or less, it's gonna be like a sort of hot take type of thing. That it's like, okay, listen, there's this that type of thing, but try to hold me to that if I get too into my ramble. But like the big personal thing for me was like watching everything in getting to the finale. It's realizing because on the second rewatch, which we did yesterday, like that was the second time I rewatched it, and I truly genuinely appreciate the finale. Originally I thought it was like, yeah, this is a pretty good way to end it off. It does, you know, it does the great thing of just ending and not giving all the full satisfaction of seeing everybody's happy ending, because that's not how life works. But on the second rewatch, I'm like, it's it's the type of ending I feel we needed. It's the most important type of ending because it wraps up the most important characters' stories and tells us they're going to be okay, they're going to be fine. They're like, there's not much you need to worry about for them. This is the genuine happy ever after, because there's no more after this. And I think that's something we really needed to see. We did need to see, because like with the ending, it like gives us, or more or less, damn, kind of losing myself a bit into it. Like
Mom spaghetti.
God damn it.
I'm sorry.
You're good, man. Keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Right.
I was
Like,
following.
Right. I think it's just one of those endings where it's like it was something more important, because we don't need it'd be simple to just kill off Bojack and call it a day, but then you're now left wondering, what about everyone else exactly? You know, the finale works more to give us an epilogue to the stories.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we needed. We need to know what is happening with Diane, what's happening with Todd, what's happening with Peanut Butter, what's happening with Princess Caroline. We needed to know that. Otherwise, we would have been way more dissatisfied. And like Keeks and Hidden said, it's that it's about accountability. Bojack it's this easy. At the end of the day, and this is going to sound a little fucked up maybe, but death at the end of the day is the easy way out of all your troubles, and that's never how you should ever view anything. Of just,
Yeah.
but yeah, die and all the troubles go away. I don't face the accountability. I don't have to face the heartbreak or anything like that. And it's like, you can't, that'd be a horrible message of like, yep, just kill him off. He had such a bad life, everything went wrong for him, kill him off, and we're just good. Everything's now finally back to normal. Saying no, that this man hurt a lot of people, and he needs to actually suffer some consequences for that. Taking your life is not facing proper consequences, really. and like that's what the finale was going for. And this is kind of getting to that bit of that preachiness thing, is that I know people I believe in the idea of the logical ending. It's like, logically speaking, Bojack should just die because he's such an awful person and all this and that. And like, that's not what it always boils down to. It's just a simple kill off the character and we have the most logically well knit story, because that'd be the ending that you want, but it's not the ending that you need. The one you need is to know you are going to make fuck ups, yes, but you get to grow from that. It's not just simply you fucked up and you need to die now because of it. No, it's you fucked up, but you get to maybe make amends. You get to get back up and start riding again, fix up the problems you caused, maybe make some people's lives better. Maybe you fuck up again along the way, but like Todd said in the finale, it's like, yeah, you got drunk, but you'll get sober. And then Bojack's like, but I could get drunk again. And he's like, and Todd's like, you'll get sober again. Like, there is no measurement to this. You will fall and you're going to get back up, and you may fall again, but you can get back up. You got 2 legs, use them. You got 2 arms, use them. You have the means to save yourself. You have the means to keep getting back up and doing the right thing. Yeah, you're going to slip up, but that's fine. As long as you keep pushing it, you keep moving. It's not a simple thing of just call it a day, kill yourself, or let yourself die and things become better, because for all you know, it probably would make things worse. You never know. Life never gives us a definitive answer on everything, and it's not always simple. It's just take the easy way out and you're going to be fine, or things will be fine. It just is never like that. And that's why I think we absolutely needed the finale. We needed that last episode, otherwise it just wouldn't have fit right. It wouldn't have fit towards the message that they were going for with what they want to say about how we deal with our struggles and how we have to go through life and how we deal with the proper consequences of living life.
Yep, it's like the jogging baboon says.
Yeah.
It gets easier. Every day, it gets a little easier, but you gotta do it every day, and that's the hard part. But it does get easier.
Yep. And there's so many good quotes in this show.
Yep, like Todd said, you turn yourself around.
Yeah, I love that part so much.
I do too. All right, Shady Durags, how do you feel about the series finale?
I think it would be more beneficial if Tariq went first.
Oh, shit.
All right, we got some hot takes coming up. Tariq, what do you think?
So, I remember when I found out that it was ending, I kept saying he was gonna die. I was on Twitter. I was like, "Yo, what y'all doing when Bojack died in January?" Like, the day it came, like right before it came out. I put up like a separate tweet about like, it's like, "Yo, he's gonna die, yo." And everybody's like, "Shut up," and I'm like, "Nah, it's happening. It's happening." So when we finally got there, and then he died, like. I remember crying, but I was also like, yeah, I told y'all. I knew it. I was looking at the homies next to me, and sitting there looking at the screen. I'm like, yeah. So I remember the next episode started, because I would have let the credits play, but like, the Netflix does the thing where they just go to the next episode, and the remote to the Fire Stick was on the other end of the room, so he just left it. And so when the episode started, I hated the montage at first. Like when they I hated that gag where they're like, "Horseman dead," and then it's not really that. I was pissed. Like I was like, "What are they doing?" I was pissed.
They're like, "Gotcha."
I was like, "No, he's dead." Like I kept and he just kept going. I'm like, "Well, maybe like it's just like I don't know." I was trying to make up stuff in my head. And then and then like. The episode played out, and I remember really, really, like, jokes aside, after that bit I had with the opening, like I settled my feet and got over the fact that the horse was alive, and then like I was able to enjoy it, and I really, really, really appreciate it because, like we was talking about before, the show has like an insane amount of quotables, right? Like it just and so like the dialogue is always what's drawing me to it, and I was waiting for that because I knew that if they could do anything, they could give really, really powerful final dialogue. Like, that was just something that was always like in my head in general, and that's exactly what I got. And I hadn't. I remember when after I saw it, like this is how you know I'm on like a really like high horse or something, because like when it ended and I just kind of tweeted. I think I said BoJack Horseman is the greatest animated show ever made. I said something like that, and I was because I couldn't believe the run. I couldn't believe what they were able to do, how they were able to do it, the characters they were able to do it with. Every time I talk about the show, I think about when I was listening to the Joe Budden podcast one time, right? And they were talking about shows that they were watching, and one of them, the guy Parks, who is the engineer on the podcast, he brought up BoJack, and they were like, "What's that about?" And he's like, "It's about a horse who used to be an actor, and he's trying to find his place." It was really early on, so that was a good enough explanation. And then the whole room froze, and then they bursted into laughter, and they said, "That is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. We're in the wrong profession. We can make some shit like that." And like, I couldn't like
wrong.
I think about that like a lot because they don't even know. Like, they get on that podcast and they talk about like, you know, a lot of the shows that are on TV, whether it be old or new, whether it be shit like The Wire or Power or something like that. But it's like, you wouldn't even know that the show about the horse is more powerful than anything else that they're talking. You know what I mean? And it's like that they were able to do that. It just it blows my mind. And when we rewatched it, when we rewatched it, Keeks moved their mouse, and I saw how long they moved their mouse right before the Diane and Bojack conversation.
Yeah,
and
I wanted to see how much
it
time was left.
Yeah, I saw how long it was, and I was like, "Fuck, I don't remember it being that long."
Yeah,
and it's just so well written. They don't go back and do a whole bunch of callbacks. They don't resample dialogue from super early on. A whole bunch of stuff that like you would do to be artsy, you would do to tug at the heartstrings. Think of something like, I don't know, like Change Your Mind in Steven Universe when he's like, "Very pork chop were perfect, we wouldn't have hot dogs." Like, he says that in the finale, and it's supposed to make you go, "Oh," but you know, and it does do that. But there's also something really cathartic in not doing that, and just kind of letting the conversation play out as it is. This is what these characters are feeling. This is how they are in real time, and I really I appreciate that a lot. And yeah, after a lot more thought, because it was always that lingering thing in my mind, was like, yeah, man, but should have killed that horse, yo. It would have been fine. But you know, after re-seeing it and stepping back and looking at everything in totality and contextualizing it, it's like, yeah, nah, I appreciate where this went, and I'm happy it went out the way that it did. It went out still smart. It went out still funny. It went out still extremely poignant. It's crazy how a show could have some of the funniest lines I've ever heard in my life and some of the most gut-wrenching lines I've ever heard in my life.
Yep.
I still think about that. It's a really stupid line where he's like, I think Wanda meets somebody that like was frozen too, and she's like, "Oh, we have that in common." And Bojack's like, "What do you? That's like one small thing you have in common. That's like saying me and Kanye West have something in common because we both breathe air constantly." Like, it's funny how a show that has a line like that can also like tug at the strings. And yeah, good finale. I hope that answers the question.
All right, are we ready for the hot take, Shady?
I don't
Let's
know.
do it.
Are we?
Let's do it, brother. Let's do it.
Okay, so the original question that was posed is, people complain about the finale. Some people complain about the finale, saying that it would have been better. It might have been better if it ended on episode 15 instead of episode 16. And that kind of shifts into, should Bojack have died? So I have this motto, where I say, you should never sacrifice story for the lesson. Now, I don't think Bojack sacrificed story for the lesson, but I think when people defend the final episode, that's the mentality they have. They are prioritizing the message rather than the story. And the reason I say that is because I could make a story about how it's dangerous to talk to strangers. And I say, little Sally went out and talked to her next door neighbor who she didn't know, and the world exploded. The lesson was learned. You shouldn't talk to strangers. That wasn't a particularly good story. So when I look at the series finale, first of all, there's a lot I like in the final episode. I love the Hokey Pokey line. It's one of my favorite lines in the entire show. I love Princess Carolyn and Bojack's final moments together. I think it was just genuinely touching. But if you ask me, would the story overall have been better if it ended at episode 15 instead of 16? Or would it have been better if Bojack had died? I would have to say yes.
Yeah,
and the reason...
So yeah, kill a horse.
Well, the reason I say that is because, first of all, episode 15 leaves a much bigger impact. I know some people don't want that. And that's the kind of the message that the writers, the kind of atmosphere the writers were going for. It's like, life just keeps going. It's not necessarily going to leave a big impact like that. It's just going to keep going. It doesn't leave a big impact and end unless, that's just how you die. But if you remember, see episode 15, this is something I think a lot of people ignore when they're talking about this episode. Episode 15, people describe it as saying, we can't end it with Bojack just dying. They specifically constantly say, just dying. And I remember episode 15, Bojack wasn't just dying. The show specifically goes out of its way to say he does not want to die. He does not want this to happen. If this consequence goes through, he will be upset. Well, he'll be dead, but it's not something he wants. It is true as not only a consequence, but a huge consequence. And I don't think it's trying to say he's getting an out by doing it. I think he thought that when he originally tried it, but because of episode 15, it puts into context that he doesn't feel like it's an out. He feels like it's a consequence. Now, it won't be a consequence to all his actions in the past, but it is a consequence to something he's done. And I think we can still get this message that people want with a dead Bojack. I think, let's say 16 begins and Bojack's dead. He died. We can still see the characters going through a funeral, talking to each other, seeing what's going on in their lives, getting closure with Bojack, and the message that Diane says, Bojack and Diane, sometimes life sucks and then you die, but also sometimes life sucks and you keep living. Diane is the symbol of the keep living by the time the end of the show comes up. Diane went through a lot. A lot of the main characters do follow the example of keep living, especially Princess Carolyn. But I think at the end, Diane was supposed to be the symbol of that because she had just gone through so much mentally, and we see how much on a better path she is than Bojack. But again, you could make that argument about any of the characters. But even with that fact, any of the 5 characters you could say exemplifies that fact, that sometimes life sucks, but you keep living. And then you have the one other character who didn't exemplify that fact. Sometimes life sucks and you die. I think that message can still be portrayed if Bojack were to die. But I think overall the biggest thing is that the story does kind of end in just I want to say a low breeze, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when episode 15 was throwing so much at us, giving us so much to think about and contemplate, and the main character just about died, for a sudden low breeze to come in like that, it feels what's the word I'm looking for? I guess, for lack of a better term, it feels anticlimactic. And I get it. Some people say that's the point. It should feel anticlimactic. But there's a difference between a story being real and a story being believable, or a story being a good story. That's why a lot of times stories don't lean towards being more real, because they're trying to be a good story. Realism does not always make a good story. And I know a lot of people come to BoJack Horseman for its realism, but it's still telling a story. And I think there was another ending that still could have exemplified the atmosphere people wanted, that you don't always get closure, that you don't always see what you want, where we could have had a much bigger impact on how the story fades out on itself. And that is my hot take. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope I wake up tomorrow and
I gotta say, while I still mostly disagree, I think that is the best argument I've ever heard for a pro BoJack death ending.
I agree.
You made a lot of really, really good points. And I do think ultimately that I feel like what you summed up almost comes down to, like you said at the end, kind of a preference of story. Like, do you want this? Do you come to this show for the realism, or do you come to this show for the story? I think the answer for a lot of people is both. But where you sit on on which side of the fence you sit might determine if you liked the finale or not. Personally, I feel like I needed this finale, and I do agree that View from Halfway Down was definitely a more climactic ending. It could have been a bigger, more impactful ending, but there's something about that low breeze after the storm that is so not. It's kind of haunting, and it's kind of relieving, and it's all of the above. And I personally really loved the way that this finale, I do think it was important for me as someone who's watching this show that the message was a priority, and that BoJack, and the idea that BoJack would have to face accountability, and I really liked the idea, because I definitely agree with you. I don't think if they had just killed him, like The View from Halfway Down made it clear that this was a whole process for him, and that he was going through a lot in that process. But personally, I like the idea that BoJack has to keep moving forward without the promise of redemption. I like the idea that he has to be held accountable, and that he still has to keep living, and he's going to try and improve, and he's going to try to be a better person. But there's no promise for redemption in the public eye, or even with his best friends. And I feel like that is something that no show has ever done. And that always stuck with me. And while I do think The View from Halfway Down is more impactful, I feel like Nice While It Lasted has sat with me longer.